lot of tents have been picked up and removed.
Tonight, Vancouver police clear out the tents on the downtown east side.
The usual comment I hear is, we don't want to appear soft on crime.
A mixed decision on mandatory minimums from Canada's highest court.
At the end of the game, everybody helps each other in different ways.
And more from the Arctic Winter Games in Treaty 8 territory. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Officials with the Assembly of First Nations are keeping quiet today about the apparent resignation of the organization's chief operating officer. Numerous sources tell APTN News that AFN CEO Janice Cavalia tendered her resignation last week. National Chief Roseanne Archibald declined interview requests today while attending an event in Winnipeg. AFN Communications replied to emails about the resignation by writing, "The AFN will not be commenting." AFN Regional Chief for Manitoba, Cindy Woodhouse, had this to say when asked about the CEO's resignation.
I'd heard that. I haven't seen anything in writing this morning, but I will ask at the AFN to send me if in fact that is true. I would like to see the letter that she has in fact resigned, and I just have to say that many of us adored the CEO very much. So I don't know. I don't know anything further at this point, except she's a wonderful worker, and I just I wish her all the best if that's the case.
Meanwhile, the chief of the Halibu First Nation, Brendan Mitchell, is the interim AFN regional chief for Newfoundland. Mitchell says he will lobby the federal government to establish a regional office and start the process of finding Newfoundland's chief. Last year at the Chiefs Assembly of the AFN, a resolution passed to establish Newfoundland's own representative. The province was originally folded into the province of Nova Scotia. To the Supreme Court of Canada now, where the recently issued mixed decision in cases that involved firearms and mandatory minimum sentences. One of the mandatory minimum sentences upheld by the SCC is about an Indigenous offender who used a firearm in his crimes. The other decision involved a non-Indigenous offender who used an airsoft gun. That mandatory minimum in the non-Indigenous offenders case was declared unconstitutional by the court. Senator Kim Pate says the federal government can't keep saying mandatory minimum penalties are okay when more and more Indigenous and people of color are ending up in Canadian prisons.
The usual comment I hear is, we don't want to appear soft on crime. When you have Indigenous leaders after the Sanderson tragedy and travesties calling out for more resources in community, not longer more punitive sentences, you can rely on that.
With the opioid crisis showing no signs of slowing down, Vancouver police have moved in to remove tents and structures from homeless camps set up in the city's downtown east side. For more on that, here's APTN's Tina House.
Thank you. We're here on the downtown east side, and joining me today is Trey Helton, manager of the Overdose Prevention Society. Trey, can you give us an idea of what's happening here on the downtown east side?
A lot of tents have been picked up and removed. VPD and the City of Vancouver dump truck team or whatever, the cleaner picker-upper guys are coming in and not really giving notice and setting up barricades and packing people's stuff up and getting rid of some of the tents and structures on the street. It seems like they are giving them storage options. It's not just like everything is getting thrown out into the garbage. I've seen bins that kind of look like trash bins, but they're not. They're for storage facility stuff. So they are doing it with a little bit of compassion. The main thing that I don't know that's happening, that I hope is happening, is that people are getting housing options. That's the main thing, and it should be the main priority. There's a lot of development happening in the downtown east side. The old 58 lot is getting taken down. It's going to provide 180 units for Indigenous families, 80 units for low-income residents, but it won't be completed for another 2 to 3 years. So I hope the new municipal government in City Hall and David Eby will make emergency housing like a priority, like right now, like something's got to open up, and yeah, there's a cold snap coming this weekend. Ops has been activated as an emergency shelter for people on the street starting tomorrow night for the next 4 days. It's supposed to be sub-zero temperatures, so you got to feel a lot of compassion for the people that are on the street right now living in tents.
Absolutely. I mean, the situation down here has just grown enormously with tents and people literally finding a home here on the sidewalk. How much has that increased, have you seen over the last couple of years?
With COVID and stuff, it definitely has increased a bit. And, with the hot summer we had 2 years ago, people were like, even if they had SRO housing, it's just so hot and humid in there that people chose like living in a tent as an option. So, yeah.
Trey, are you seeing more police presence down here? I know with the new mayor, Ken Sim, when he was elected, he announced that he'd be hiring at least 100 more officers here on the downtown east side. Are you seeing more of a presence of police down here?
The cops have just become like a background thing around here. It's just they're so prevalent, and just every like second car is a police car. So it doesn't. I don't really notice it so much, but BPD have been. I can say that they've been responding to like minor street altercations like very fast. Like things like where people are yelling at each other and would just kind of go under the radar. It's like immediate, and it might not even need police intervention. But the one thing where I have seen a lot more VP that I haven't seen before is Chinatown. It's like constant beat police with the revitalization of Chinatown and people feeling unsafe. Just because the downtown east side is 1 block away from Chinatown, there is a lot of overflow of drug users moving in there, and some elders obviously do feel unsafe, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that stuff is happening, and yeah.
Trey, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Back to you in studio.
BC's bid to decriminalize small amounts of drugs in an effort to curb the deadly opioid crisis has been given the green light. Here again with more is Tina House.
BC has just recorded its second deadliest year in history, with the record 2,272 deaths from toxic drugs in 2022. And now, both the federal and provincial government are taking a bold new step to help save lives.
As we all know, there is no recovery for someone who is dead. Last May, I announced that our government had approved an exemption request from the province of British Columbia so that adults 18 years and over in the province found in the personal possession of up to 2.5 grams of certain illegal drugs for personal use would not be arrested, criminally charged, or have their drugs seized.
With Indigenous people dying at over 5 times the rate of other BC residents, there is hope that decriminalizing these small amounts will allow officers to assist in other ways rather than arresting people.
We recognize that much more work still needs to be done to address the magnitude of the toxic drug crisis and its impact on communities. We look forward to working with our partners on additional measures to combat the toxic drug crisis, including access to safe supply and better connecting people who use drugs with social, health, and treatment services.
Instead of being treated as criminals, they will be treated with care and compassion. Decriminalizing people who use drugs is a critical step in tackling the toxic drug crisis. It will help break down stigma, the fear and shame around substance use that prevents so many people from reaching out for life-saving supports. Because substance use is a public health matter, not a criminal justice one.
This pilot project is welcomed by Dylan Dempsey, an admitted drug user.
I think that's a good thing because a lot of users have their own personal stash on them from point A to point B kind of thing. So if they were to get stopped by the cops, it's a good thing for them, you know. They shouldn't be getting harassed under such a small amount.
But for Raya Roberts, she believes it gives an opening for more dealers to sell more toxic drugs.
We get people who don't know what they're doing, who don't know how to make drugs, creating odd cocktails of, and I think we've seen this, right, over the years. Now we're seeing, possibly an influx of tranquilizer dope, right? Tranquilizers in dope, right? I can see things like that getting worse, actually.
Trey Helton works at the Overdose Prevention Society and says street drugs are even more toxic now more than ever.
The regular used to be like a caffeine mannitol buffing agent in the drugs with a 5% fentanyl ratio, and the new norm now is around a 25 to 35% fentanyl ratio, which is extremely strong. Combine in the fact that people are mixing benzos in there. It's a 50-50 shot whether you're going to get fentanyl with benzos or just plain old fentanyl. But the reality is that the fentanyl is even stronger now because people have built up a tolerance to it. So
starting January the 31st, it will no longer be illegal to carry 2.5 grams in a bid by the BC government to stop the shame and stigma for drug users. But with the toxicity levels increasing, will that help the situation? Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Thanks, Tina. We want to hear what you think about BC's plan to decriminalize small amounts of drugs. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca or leave a comment on our website, that's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. You can follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. In Manitoba, the Southern Chiefs organization is calling on the federal and provincial governments to do better. At a recent news conference, SCO presented stories of how the healthcare system is failing Indigenous peoples in the province. The move comes after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a meeting on healthcare with premiers and territorial leaders without First Nations representation. The chief cited long-standing issues of inadequate care and doctor shortages in their communities as reasons why they should be at the table.
It's getting worse now. It's a life and death matter for many of our members. We've had people, I believe, are passing away there unnecessarily. Could be getting treatment.
In Saskatchewan, First Nations University is one step closer to securing more land for their new campus. A Prince Albert City Council decision from earlier this month agreed to transfer 5 acres of land for $1 so that the university can build a new campus in the southwest area of the city, pending federal funding. The current campus is one of the fastest growing in Canada, but the location is no longer serving the students' needs. The new campus could house a minimum of 600 students, as compared to 400 in a 2-story building, and would include a ceremonial room, elder room, childcare, studios, and classrooms. The Arctic Winter Games continued today in Treaty 8 territory. We'll bring you some of the action after the break. Welcome back. The Arctic Winter Games are in full swing in Fort McMurray, Alberta, after a 5-year absence, in part because of COVID. It's day 2 of a week of competition. APTN Charlotte Moore-Jacobs is at the Games and joins us now.
Well, it's been an exciting last 2 days here at the Arctic Winter Games in Wood Buffalo, Treaty 8 territory. As of last night, the Northwest Territories had the top gold medals, also known as Ulus, bringing home 7, but it was Team Yukon who had the most hardware with 17 Ulus, followed closely behind by the host team, Team Alberta North, with 15. Opening ceremonies kicked things off last night with Arctic Sports and Dene Games, with competitions in stick pull, head pull, 2-foot high kick, and triple jump. Now the action's going to continue all day today. APTN's Chris Stewart will be on location filming a mix of Arctic sports as well as a highly anticipated men's hockey game between Team Nunavut and Team Alaska. I'll be on location filming the first ever introduction to archery, which is now an official sport here at the Arctic Winter Games. Back to you in studio.
Thanks, Charlotte. On Monday, Fort McMurray hosted the preliminaries of a traditional game that requires strength and skill, the Dene Games stick pull. The stick pull games were traditionally played by the Dene to strengthen the hands and wrist. The winner must pull a greased stick from their opponent or pull the stick back past their waist for 2 seconds. Strict rules prevent turning your wrist or bending your arm. Also on Monday, Team Nunavut women's volleyball faced off with Team Greenland in Fort McMurray in the preliminaries. Nunavut kept the score close each game after coming back from large deficits, but Team Greenland was too much for the Nunavut women. Team Greenland took the best of 5 games, 3 games to none. Greenland's players told APTN that Nunavut is a strong team.
Nunavut and we have almost the same level, so it's nice to have some team like that so we can push ourselves more. Yeah, it's really nice.
Now, the Arctic Winter Games host nearly 2,000 athletes, youth ambassadors, and cultural delegates. Our reporter Charlotte Moore-Jacobs takes a look at what the games mean for remote regions.
Not a lot of people know about Inuit Games, so just for us to represent and have a team, it feels like we have a purpose to be here.
Well, it takes tremendous athleticism to compete in the Arctic Winter Games. 19-year-old Naya Pierce of Kalawit knows it takes just as much mental endurance.
You have to be very concentrated and have a lot of confidence in yourself, because Inuit Games is like a lot of mind games.
Roughly 2,000 athletes, youth ambassadors, cultural delegates, and coaches are here from north of the 55th parallel.
The first time I stepped in here, I was super nervous. Mostly because I'm the only girl and on my team, so I was really nervous, in meeting new people.
For many, they're far from home, competing in their first international competition. The games are a way for northern athletes to compete at such a high level, when traveling for training and competitions is so expensive.
We are tremendously proud to support these Arctic Winter Games and play an integral role as a host for what is going to be an exceptional week.
Councillor Kendrick Cardinal says the 2023 Games have been supporting rural Indigenous communities within the municipality of Wood Buffalo.
I think that the Arctic Winter Games 2023 in Fort McMurray being held here will showcase and show and I guess inspire other young youth that are, struggling and possibly just, they don't have the facility to do it.
The Games are known as the Olympics of the North, and it's important that the care and comfort of all is taken back to communities after the Games.
Who are role models and leaders within their communities, it's really important for them to feel confident in their own abilities and their own knowledge about mental health so that they can better support their participants.
Evelyn Anderson is with the Coaching Association of Canada. They've chosen Arctic Winter Games as the first event to launch mental health resource packages. This includes infographics, training modules, and activities coaches can do with their teams.
With the support of this funding, we were able to translate that module into 7 additional languages, including Inuktitut, Dene, and Cree. So now coaches can take that mental health and sport e-learning module for free.
How can athletes take care of themselves while under pressure? Pierce says it's all about community and connection.
Like, I know there's different teams, but at the end of the game, like, everybody helps each other in different ways, and each team gives this advice for everything, and try to give pointers so you can do your best in it.
Charlotte Mort Jacobs, APTN National News, Fort McMurray, Treaty 8 territory.
And we will have much more from the Arctic Winter Games all week long right here. Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Welcome back. It's time now to take a look at our photo of the day. And our thanks to Blaine for providing today's photo of the day. Blaine is the owner-operator of Cree North Adventures of the Flying Dust First Nation in Treaty 6 territory. He sent many great photos in, and we picked this one as our favorite. Thanks again, Blaine. Beautiful pictures. We want to see your great shots, so send them to us by email to share@aptn.ca so we can share your photos across Turtle Island. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 6 below in Halifax, -9 in Charlottetown, 30 below for Kuujjuaq, -25 in Nain. Snow and 8 below for Montreal, flurries and 13 below in Chibougamau. -8 with snow in Sault Ste. Marie and North Bay. -13 for Thunder Bay, 19 below in Sioux Lookout. -22 in God's Lake, Norway House and the Paw. -18 in Winnipeg, snow and 13 below for Dauphin. -13 and cloudy in Regina, snow and 16 below in Saskatoon. -21 in Meadow Lake, 27 below with snow in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, another chilly day at the Arctic Winter Games, minus 26 with snow in Fort McMurray. Minus 10 with snow in Edmonton, plus 2 in Lethbridge. 6 above for Vancouver and Victoria, minus 1 in Kamloops. Minus 4 with snow in Prince George and Smithers. Minus 34 for Old Crow, 16 below in Whitehorse. Minus 34 in Yellowknife, 1 degree warmer in Norman Wells. Minus 33 for Sax Harbor, 35 below in Colville Lake. Minus 39 in Baker Lake and Chesterfield, minus 41 in Whale Cove. 35 below in Resolute, minus 38 with snow in Joe Haven. Cree filmmaker Jules Kostashian is our guest tonight on Face to Face. She has recently released her first feature-length film after years of making short films and documentaries. Broken Angel is based on Kostashian's time working in a women's shelter, and it deals with some heavy subject matter, including physical and emotional abuse.
No. In our industry, as Indigenous creators, we've been told, let's focus on the happy, stories. Let's focus on the positive. Yes, I totally agree, but we totally have to find a balance as well. Like, we can't erase these stories because they're still happening. So I think when we have more Indigenous women in key creative roles, then we'll speak to the issues that are important to us and issues that we need to shed light on.
You can watch that entire episode of Face to Face coming up in just a couple of minutes. Aside from being a filmmaker, Jules is also the voice of Layla, the mom on Molly of Denali. Fun episode. Be sure to join us tomorrow too, live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for In Focus. Daryl will be digging into the saga of the Cuisance sisters and their ongoing fight for freedom. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For much more, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned. Face to Face is next. Have a great night.